Sustaining Creativity podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Regina Linke, author and illustrator. Please enjoy Regina Linke. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. Today I'm chatting with Regina Linke, author and illustrator. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I think we're going to have a fun conversation today.
I agree. I am really looking forward to creativity and the conversation of how it shows up in your work and your life. Before we get there, why don't you take a couple of moments and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what it is you do?
Sure. So I entered into the creative career space pretty late. So I didn't actually start learning how to paint until I was probably 35. And I was already a mom and I already had a career prior to that. But since then, I have basically worked on an online webcomic that combines East Asian philosophy with traditional Chinese painting, which has then pivoted into three traditionally published books. A fourth one will be coming out in a couple of years. And so it's been really interesting to develop this side of my life, personality, career later. And it's just been such a wild journey, a lot of growth, a lot of self-discovery. And so I'm excited to share exactly how that happened and unfolded.
Amazing. I love the kind of coming to creative output or creative expression later in life, because I think oftentimes we it does start early and then maybe we step away from it and come back to it.
Sure.
But that experience for you, why don't you take us a little on that journey from what were you doing before and what was that pivotal moment where you decided I'm stepping into this more creative career space?
Yeah, it's really interesting because as a kid, it's like you said, I drawing and painting as a child was something that I could lose myself doing, up until I was maybe 8 or 9.
Hmm.
And my parents were definitely very encouraging of me. They would sign me up for art camps and things like that. And so I did a lot of like really random things like bas relief and, pottery and kind of the usual visual arts of like painting and sketching, but I was also I really like wanted to follow in my older brother's footsteps, and he was very just like logical, rational, very engineering minded. And I was
Hmm.
like, I'm going to do the hard sciences and I want to be just like Jade and he's awesome. And I think like it was one of those things where I did well enough academically where a hard science career or a hard math career was still within the realm of possibility for me. And so I just like kept pursuing that, and it just didn't figure into my life as a young person that having a creative outlet, even if it wasn't professional, like could still fit into my
Sure.
world.
Yeah.
And so I ended up not going into engineering, but I did end up doing. I ended up getting a business degree, which
Hmm.
was interesting because I felt like I was at a crossroads in college where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do,
Hmm.
and business just seemed like the thing to do when you don't know what you want to do because
Sure.
everybody has to make a living somehow, right? And
Hmm.
so I ended up doing international marketing. I worked in finance for a bit, and I was just kind of like jumping around, saving money, which is great. And then I remember working at a defense contracting company, and I think it was celebrating like some like 50th anniversary, and they like gave all the employees like this commemorative mouse pad with like five different missiles blowing up in different directions, and it was
Oh my
like
goodness.
we're keeping peace around the world, and like I had this like crisis of identity where I was like, what am I doing? And
Yeah.
and so I ended up completely changing tack, and I joined the Peace Corps.
Ah,
And and so I was like, I'm going to use my business skills for good and not evil. And so my parents were like, what are you doing? And I ended up moving to Peru for almost 3 years. It
wow.
was an incredible experience because I was working with basically an association of women artisanal weavers and helping
Mm-hmm.
them with their business to get them kind of more export international market ready. And we ended up starting a microfinance arm so that these
Wow.
women could basically become more financially independent from their husbands.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And so that was like a side of the business world where I feel like it had this human quality to it. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
divorced from
Mm-hmm.
the people who are actually using business in order to gain some kind of financial freedom, independence, and to be able to kind of build their own self-esteem in a certain way. And so yeah, it was it's been kind of a circuitous journey where, afterwards when I came back, I ended up going into the travel and tourism industry and started working at a nonprofit, kind of similar where, it's business, but you're also working with locals
Mm-hmm.
and helping them manage their own kind of tourism experience and what does bringing in international money actually look like for a local population.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I had a kid, and and that took me out of the nonprofit world for a little bit. And my husband at the time also started working remotely, and so
Mm.
my son was about 2 years old, and we had the chance to basically live abroad again.
Ah,
And I was like, oh, like this is the perfect time before he starts school that we can, just go somewhere. And so that's when we moved to Taiwan, which is where my
wow.
parents immigrated from.
Mm.
And we specifically picked it because, like, one, like the cost of living was a lot lower. We
Mm-hmm.
were actually living in my parents' house. So we were lucky that, like, we had a place to live and, we wouldn't be like, at each other's throats all the time. We actually get along quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And we could, survive on a single income. And I don't know that we would have been able to do that in the States. Like
Sure.
there's some math that just doesn't work out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so while I was there, that's when I started
Mm.
taking Chinese painting lessons and kind of
Wow.
having the time to rediscover the things that, used to help me just pass hours and hours of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that approaching uh, art and art lessons as an adult, it was very different than as a kid. I think as a kid, I was just like, this is just for fun, and I wasn't taking it seriously. It's not like I was applying myself
Mm-hmm.
very methodically to the craft. But as an adult and as, a parent to a young child, I think just knowing that I had limited time to dedicate to this, I knew I wanted to do it well. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to use the time to learn as much as I could. And so I approached the academic rigor of being in kind of this atelier setting where
Mm-hmm.
this kind of painting that I do is called gongbi, and it's very meticulous work, um, and it takes a lot of time to render basically a single painting. And so working with a teacher who was familiar and, a master of this craft and really took the time to, I guess, force his students to go through the ropes and jump through all the hoops and
Sure.
yeah, it was very grueling, but
Mm-hmm.
I think for him it was just like it's foundational, and I think as a
Mm.
kid if I had learned it, like I would have just been like, no thanks. Like I
Right, right. Yeah.
yeah, but at some point, he did say, like, he was like, Joy, like Regina, like it's interesting that someone who grew up in the States in the West is still able to, master a fair amount of the technique that East
Mm.
Asian painting offers because it's just such a different style. Um, and then he also went on to tell me, but at the same time, like you're never gonna be like this like fine artist in the
Hmm.
Chinese painting space because in Chinese arts, it's like a combination of like Chinese philosophy with the Chinese painting with Chinese poetry. And
Mm,
so
mm-hmm.
it's this like confluence of different art forms coming together in addition to Chinese calligraphy, which like I'm practically illiterate in Mandarin, like much less I can't even learn like Chinese traditional Chinese calligraphy. And so he was like, it's possible that you might be able to master this in like 25, 30 years.
Wow.
But you have to work really hard and you have to be honest about how much time you're willing to sacrifice from your family,
Mm,
from your other interests to actually
yeah.
apply yourself to that. And, I grew up in the States in the 90s, when everyone was getting participation trophies and everything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, for my teacher to, like, basically say, like, this isn't going to happen for you unless you make some really serious sacrifices, I was like, oh, just knife me in the heart, right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But like, and so he was right, and he
Mm-hmm.
said that you can take what I've taught you. You've picked up enough skills. You can take your understanding and perspective of Western style composition, what you understand from the American marketplace, what people gravitate towards in terms of art and illustration, and you could still make a career for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But you just have to figure out your own way. And there's no one who's going to be able to do that for you. And
Yeah.
so he did give me an out, like,
That's
which was
kind of
good of
him.
him.
Yeah.
It's not like he was just like, no, you're done, you're washed up. um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so in the end, my son was around that, like around this time, he was probably 4 or 5, and I don't know if you spend a lot of time with young kids. I never did. I never babysat or did camps or anything like that. So for me to kind of be with my son during this age when he's like coming of consciousness and like asking questions about like life and death and
Yeah.
friendship and what's fair and everything. And
Oh.
so this it kind of became this crucible of like both this kind of working with a young child, Chinese philosophy, Chinese painting, and it all kind of came together
Mm.
in the webcomic in the Oxford Boy, which is it takes um, the three Chinese philosophies of Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism, and there's three characters that basically dialogue
Mm, mm-hmm.
about certain life questions. And this became an Instagram account. I don't know, maybe shortly after the pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of was able to take off because everybody was online and
Right.
looking for inspirational, like feel good messages, kind of
Yeah.
to help us through the tough times. And then once that happened, I was like, hey, like maybe this could be a traditionally published volume. And so I started looking for literary agents, got connected with one who seemed to understand kind of where I was going with it. And she
Mm-hmm.
recommended um, basically, since it started with my son, like why not make it more child friendly? And
Mm.
so she helped me develop some picture book ideas, and we were able to basically pitch it to like yeah publishers, and it just yeah it's been wonderful to be able to work on the books with different editors and art directors because I think before it was kind of just isolating work. I was just working on my
Yeah.
own, and to be able to share that with um, an entire kind of team now who also have their ideas and recommendations on what might be more appealing to an American kid versus like
Mm-hmm.
an older adult, which is how the Instagram kind of started, has
Mm-hmm.
been really interesting to kind of put myself in different kind of shoes and see how stories might be different than just kind of a philosophical little chat, you know. So
Mm.
it's taken on different forms, but it's definitely um, been an evolution, and I'm curious kind of where it will end up because it's really only been like 5 or 6 years since
Wow.
like yeah, the books have kind of started taking off, and but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
My goodness, that like such a journey to
Yeah.
have gone on and to be where you are today. I'm so curious because of this kind of seemingly non-creative into creative journey. What does it mean to you to be creative?
Mm, I guess if you had asked me before I switched to this career, I would have thought that being a creative person meant that you could just do whatever you wanted.
Oh
Like,
my gosh, I love
and
that.
yeah, and to a certain extent, I think that it still can be. It still can be like very playful,
Mhm.
very just free and very open. And I think that's important to incorporate in kind of the creative process, and to kind of feed the the creative potential. I will never say that that is not part of it. I guess what I did not expect was um, how integrated it is with other
Mm.
things that might be viewed as limitations to creativity.
Mm.
So, um, for example, just I would have never expected like being a mom would have led to a creative career. Like it's just like being a parent is like it's I don't know. I find myself like, oh, like you have to watch what you say around kids. You have to watch what you do. You have to have like strict like or like, more strict routines. You have to it's like it I don't know, like oftentimes like being a parent has felt limiting in certain
Mm.
ways. But then at the same time, it's like without having gone through being a parent and having these conversations about life with my son at the time, like when I don't know that I would have had the chance to think
Mm.
about these questions. Like there are so many of the philosophies that I've been forced to consider, that I probably would have just taken for granted and like, never
Mhm.
even reflected on. And so it's been interesting that, these things have gone hand in hand, part and parcel, which ultimately became something creative, but it wasn't like I just like pulled it out of the air. I was kind of like forced into a situation into a
Mhm.
perspective, which then, from there grew a
Mhm.
potential to actually like do something creative with it.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I would say that is kind of the surprising thing that I've experienced myself.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind of pondering of what would creativity look like had you not been a mom, had you not had those conversations with a
Hmm.
young child
Yeah.
and how it might look different or show up in your life today. But I can appreciate that you took the time to really dive into those questions because I think so
Hmm.
often people dismiss children's curiosities as uh, I'm saying annoying, but like
Oh yeah,
Children
it's 100% annoying.
children ask, 144 questions a day. Adults ask
Yeah.
four. So
Right, right.
that
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that
exactly.
difference, but kudos to you for like digging into it and saying, "Oh, wow, I hadn't thought about it in this way," and
Yeah.
being able to turn it into something. And
Yeah,
yeah.
I think if it had been a different kid, it might not have worked out so seamlessly. My son is a very cerebral kid, and he will
Mm-hmm.
not settle for just like a blow off answer, which has its pluses and minuses. I mean, even
Yeah.
now he's almost 10 and he's still like, "Why are we here?" And I'm like, "Dude, like
That's
that
life's
is the
work.
question."
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
and I wish I had a more solid answer for you, but
Mm-hmm.
like I just quoted the Prince song. I'm just like, we're just here to discover this thing called life, man. Like
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah.
but I don't, yeah, I don't know if that's any more comforting to
Right to
him.
him. Well, he has a lifetime to figure it out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny.
So I'm curious, having worked with this traditional Chinese painting
hmm
style and instructor, and then, working with editors and art directors and all of these things, how was that for you to, take your work and then kind of allow others to tease it apart, make changes? How was that experience for you navigating? I call it challenge, but maybe it
hmm
wasn't for you. I'm just curious what that was like.
Yeah, so I think that it's definitely trying to strike a balance between what is, I guess, technically considered canon in
Mm-hmm.
the East Asian art tradition, and then what is a little bit more flexible in terms of appeal, consumer
Mm-hmm.
appeal, commercial appeal. And um, I think that uh, the art form, which is called gongbi, I think that it does lend itself to a more Western I don't know how to call it, like Western tastes, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because it's colorful, it's detail oriented. There's a lot of potential to, like, to have people, have nature, have animals. So it's a flexible enough tradition where it can be applied relatively well in a Western space. Um, the where it gets a little bit more difficult is the negative space
Mm.
side of Chinese art, because I do think that Western style illustration, it really is about like filling up space,
Mm-hmm.
um, often with color, often with very bright kind of I don't know, color palettes.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think like East Asian art forms, there is more of a tradition of trying to strike a balance between light and dark, and negative space and positive space. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes negative space should dominate in a particular scene, or but it just looks a little weird, I think, to a maybe like a kid who is
Mm-hmm.
used to seeing everything just like filled up and blam blam blam. And so I think the balance then is in the story, you finding the opportunities for negative space to appear when it makes emotional sense to what is happening to the character.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first children's book, Big Enough, it's a story about, largely about being afraid of doing something, and then discovering your own way to through a problem. And so, some of the illustrations that I then was able to sell and get my editors and art directors on board with is like the negative space is reflecting kind of an emotional sense
Mm,
that the character is going through. And so finding those opportunities to match what the visual tradition is with what the story is portraying
mhm.
is was kind of my ticket out. um, yeah, and then let's see. Yeah, I guess yeah, like that's probably the biggest spot. And then also just like from a writing perspective too.
Mhm.
Um uh kind of traditional Chinese stories might not be so on the nose.
Okay.
Even with kids' books and folk tales, it's like a lot of things is like subtext and
Sure.
undercurrent, and especially for kids in the States, I feel like a lot of children's books are very direct. What you see on the page is what you get.
Mhm.
And so trying to strike the balance where not everything is spelled out in the words and the dialogue, and letting a child actually infer certain details or
Mm.
discover certain details on their own is also like a source of, oh yeah, like you said, like a challenge to convince that convince the editors or the readers that like, hey, like, kids aren't actually like that dumb. Like you don't need to spell
Yeah,
everything out
right.
for them. Like they can draw context clues and infer their
Mhm.
own meanings from what you're presenting them. And even if they get it wrong, it's not the end of the world, like it's
Sure.
gonna be okay. And yeah, so I think uh being able to work with like my editors have been great, and the
Mm.
art direction has been wonderful. But I think it's just like, we're just coming from different perspectives, and just trying to find a way to meet in the middle is has been a really good opportunity for me, because it also tests my understanding and
Yeah.
like things that I'm like, yeah, it's fine. And it's just like, wait, well, like, is it really? Like, and
Right.
then,
Why is
and
it
then,
fine?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I think like having that kind of second look has also been
Mm.
helpful, because once, we settle on something, like it just gives everyone more confidence that
Mhm.
it's going to work out. Mhm.
That makes sense. And what you were saying about, children being allowed to infer and come to their own conclusions about
Sure.
things like that in my world of creativity is actually allowing them to be creative
Creative. Yeah,
within
exactly.
the story and
Hmm.
figuring things out for themselves. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really
absolutely.
appreciate that interweave of what traditional Chinese story
Hmm.
fairy tale slash art allows in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
regard. Well,
yeah.
for people who are maybe just starting their own writing journey or illustration journey, what are the things that you would have liked to have heard when you were first starting on this journey?
Yes. So I think that one thing that I probably would have liked to have done earlier is just to start
Mm,
somewhere. I think that getting over that initial hump of just putting a pencil to paper or
mhm,
whatever, or just start typing.
mhm,
Um, is like there's never going to be the perfect moment to begin.
mhm,
And so it
mhm.
might as well be now, and it might as well be total. Can I curse? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it might as well be like totally shitty. It's going to be. And it's going to be shitty for a really, really long time. So you might as well like start now, start being shitty now so that you can be better later, right?
Right.
And I don't think that anybody ever told me that.
Oh.
And I think that as someone who discovered that for myself, that I was just like a terrible artist, or I was terrible at drawing, I was terrible at painting, but and I think that, you know, it would have been really easy for me to just stop because I was just so terrible for the first 100 posts that I did on Instagram, or whatever. And I think it's really easy to get discouraged, but it's just like you're never going to get to that 101st one where you look at it and you're like, hey, that's actually not bad, unless you get through the first 100 shitty ones, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that if someone had just told me like it's okay to have 100 terrible things, it's not a reflection of who you are as a
Mm.
creative person, as an artist. It's just something you got to get through. I think that I would have felt, just a little more motivated, a little bit more
Mhm.
relaxed about sharing things publicly.
Sure.
And so I hope that, as as someone now telling people who are starting out, it's okay to suck for a little while, and then you'll be fine.
Thank you for that permission. I think
Yeah.
it's something everyone needs to hear. But yeah, that it's okay. Make bad art and make a lot of
Yes.
it. And
Yeah.
within that, something
Hmm.
can emerge. And
Sure. Yeah.
but we do have to keep going and
Yep.
keep at it. It's not
Hmm.
make the one
The
shitty
one
art
thing.
piece
Yeah.
and say no more. It's
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
made one.
Yeah.
Let me make five more and see where.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this has been such a treat chatting. I have one last question.
Sure.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
It feels like I'm just connected.
Hmm.
I'm connected with my life, with the people in it, with the things that I do with my hands. I'm connected with what I see. And I think that the lack of connection is really
Mm.
what is painful to many people these days.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
to be creative, I think is just an opportunity to feel connected with so many things. And so I just feel tied to and integrated with the
Mm.
world. And it feels great.
I love that as you're talking, just recognizing that when we feel that lack of connection, how painful that can be, and how to tap
Yeah.
back into connectedness with ourself, with others, the greater world.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
appreciate that a lot. Well,
Great.
Regina, thank you so much for taking
Oh,
the time
thank
to join
you.
me.
Yeah.
If people want to learn more about your work, your art, your books, how could they go about doing that?
Sure. So, those who are interested in kind of the Chinese painting philosophy, it's oxherdboy.org. And there's also reginalink.com, which is more kind of like my author or artist information. But that's really where you can find all the info. And, I'll be sharing, some behind the scenes media and other things for Mari. So you can also just go directly to her podcast page.
Perfect. Well, I will put links in show notes so people have super easy access. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. This has been
Thank
such a
you.
wonderful conversation.
That's great. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.